Smash!
Hey, today we're going to be doing another Quar painting tutorial. This time I'm going to be showing you how to paint their flesh. Now, as I stated in my previous video, my favorite part of painting Quar is their flesh. You have endless possibilities when it comes to painting their skin tones, any sort of little markings, but for this video, I'm not exactly going to be painting skin tones in a direct 1, 2, 3 method. What I mean by this is I'm not just going to be painting blue flesh, red flesh, yellow flesh, etc. Well, kind of. What I really want to teach you is the foundation on how to make any skin tone look good. To do so, we're going to be using reference from all the pieces of art that we have of Quar, this being the old metal miniatures, the modern watercolor designs that we have on the box art, as well as some of the art direction for the VR game. But before we get into it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you like what you see, share it with a friend, and if you really dig it, consider becoming a channel member. You get some extra goodies, get to see my videos early, and it really just supports the channel overall. Huge thank you to my channel members. You guys are amazing. So first and foremost, let's take a little look at the actual art pieces that I want to reference. Our first example is the box art of the modern Quar, which features the watercolor designs. As you can see, a lot of these are just basically speckles of darker versions of the base color. This, I think, really translates well, especially for newcomers, as the basis of these kinds of schemes is just simply blending your base color with any whites, any sort of grays or blacks, and then you have a really good color scheme. Now, what I like about this in terms of canonical lore, and a little bit of this is headcanon, but to me, this is what a younger Quar looks like. According to the source material, a lot of the spots on Quar are a sign of age. In my eyes, a lot of the darker color schemes in terms of the spots are relative signs of older age. As you can see on this little figure I've painted here, this is what I deem a more juvenile character. He doesn't have the deeper spots, he just has these little flicks. Now, the biggest thing you'll need to remember and really need to practice for all of these schemes is good brush control. But I'll let you know now, I think this is actually a very good step in learning good brush control. The reason I say that is a lot of these schemes involve kind of speckling on these colors. It is a little random, but it's a good basis to getting your hands steady enough that you can do this without it spilling over. A really good example of how to make these colors look good is fruit, of all things. The more you look at Quar arts, they're very reminiscent of just basic household fruits. Bananas, apples, watermelons. You get the idea. Maybe not the fruit watching this video, but yeah, you get it. As you can see on the work that I've done on this guy so far, it is really simplistic in terms of a step-by-step basis. I'm using blue as a main example, as I think this is a really good way of showing it off. I'm basically just re-highlighting using the same color as the blue, but very slowly introducing whites like I mentioned previously. It really is just about favoring geometric shapes on the Quar itself. Re-highlighting or re-establishing our base color after a shade is kind of integral when it comes to really making these guys pop out. The biggest thing that obviously stands out on this guy is his beak. The more we make it apparent that the little highlights and spots are popping out on the bigger part of the snout, the better this effect will look. While it might be intimidating to paint on these little spots by hand, I really strongly encourage that you try it. It's really not nearly as difficult as it looks. The most integral part is having a well-tipped brush. It's basically just dotting these on, and it's a skin pattern. It's not going to be perfect in shape. Imperfections make perfection. You'll also notice that I use the same colors to re-highlight the wrist, and I would argue that you don't need to do this as much, but I think it makes the miniature stand out more. You see, the way that these little spots linger, especially on the fist, is they stand out because the back of the fist is so dark in color. Now, alternatively, if you feel that your spots are either too bright or too dark, a good option that you could use is using some glaze medium and reapplying the base color. Or any color for that matter to tint it to your liking. If you want to make them more blue, you could just use the same base color in glaze form. Or maybe use some purples, maybe some reds. It'll make them really stand out to your liking. Could be interesting to have a bunch of Quar that might have similar colors, but differ using glazes. And with the blue skin done, you can see that this is a very simple but very effective method of painting their flesh. Obviously, you don't need to follow my rule of this is what younger Quar look like. This is more of a headcanon thing, obviously. But as you can see, I tried this on a couple different schemes. The magenta and yellow are incredibly similar. The only difference being for the yellow is I added a little bit of brown to the yellow instead of some white, though that would also work. I simply use the brown because that matches up with a lot of the watercolor details. Now I think this is a really good foundation for learning the basics of painting Quar flesh, but this is where we can take it further. Now what I really like about this is it's very reminiscent to how I paint Space Marines. One of my favorite methods is using the brightest highlight for their armor as paint chips. We'll paint on little scratches and then I can fill them in using a darker color. For Quar, however, we'll just change the colors up a little bit. Well, I mean, you don't have to, but we'll get into that momentarily. One thing that I really like to do for middle-aged Quar is pick a very contrasting color to the base color. As you can see on the blue flesh, I'm using a light baby blue that's the brightest highlight for the flesh itself, and we'll be filling this in using orange. You could also use yellow, but I find the orange to be the best option as it's really grabbing your attention. Like I mentioned previously, or at least I meant to mention, having at least a rudimentary understanding of basic color theory will really take these little guys far. As you can see from other examples that I've painted, I always try to pick a color that really stands out from the base color. I don't really like to use too much. Having it stand out more so from the base color will really kind of muddy things up. Of course, paint them how you want to, but I like to think of it similarly to adding rust effects or corrosion. A little really goes a long way. Now another example I want to use is the art designs that we have for the promotional images. Anthony Brown's designs for painting Quar are a little bit more muted in terms of colors. While I don't really do this myself, one thing that I really do like about his color schemes when it comes to painting Quar is most of them are kind of tans and browns to kind of more traditional peachy flesh, while only having a couple that are bombastic colors like blue or yellow. Now what I like about this is you can also use the color schemes to really flesh out the characters in terms of their role in the battlefield. Now you can be like what I'm doing and picking out really bombastic colors for just about everybody in the squad, or you can go for this design where you have a couple that you really want to stand out. The possibilities are really endless. Something I also really like about his schemes in terms of the duller colors is the bright colors on these characters is very sparing. Again, playing into the idea that less is more. Now, so far we've talked a lot about younger Quar flesh and middle-aged Quar flesh, but the way that I like to paint older Quar flesh is similarly to how the Quar look in the VR game. Now, to be fair, for this, it's much more headcanon. A lot of the Quar in the VR game end up having these brown speckly spots, and to me, this feels more like they're aging properly. This also is kind of something that appears on all the Quar in the video game. Each of them, no matter what color they are, have brown speckles. For this, I'm actually doing a little bit more than usual. Like I mentioned, the older they are, the more spots they end up developing. So for this, the brown speckles I end up doing in bigger pools. Not only this, I'll end up placing them a lot on the arms and the hands. This is kind of a way of really displaying that, yeah, they're getting up there in age. They're like kind of liver spots, I guess? I don't know, kind of gross. Yeah. But another thing that I want to mention about this is it doesn't just have to be for older Quar. You can also just use this on any of your Quar to begin with. This is probably the most universal method of painting them. You can just sketch these on in little pools, or if you want, you could sponge them on. Though I'd be careful, these miniatures are a little smaller. But if you want to take it up another notch, you can alternatively group all of the styles together. We can speckle on the highlights like we would the younger Quar, and make larger spots similar to the middle-aged Quar. But instead of going for a deeply contrasting color, you can just use the dark brown. Simply just adding the brown looks good, but with just a little bit of that backing color, it really makes it pop out at you. It's super effective at adding very nice visual interest to your squad, and it's super easy to do in my opinion. If you're in a huge rush to get your models painted, I think taking just this quick and very simple step is a really good way to make them look just a little bit better. Granted, it's not my favorite of all the methods I've shown you so far, but I do have to say it's pretty satisfying to apply this. And when it comes down to it, I really don't mind using all these methods. They're Quar. You can use any method you like, and I think they look cool. Use the colors to your favor in terms of building character. Use it to really make them stand out on the battlefield. It's really endless in the possibilities. Again, I'll reiterate for the millionth time, it's my favorite part of painting these little dudes. It really allows you to flex your creative muscle in coming up with unique schemes for each guy. But on top of it, it's another reason why I like Quar as a whole. Something I always struggle with Warhammer is I'm really bad at creating one color scheme and sticking to it. With Quar, the fatigues are pretty set in stone canonically, and that isn't to say that you can't change them up and that Warhammer doesn't allow you to have all sorts of different colors on a squad. It just seems to work better for Quar because you're allowed to create all sorts of different color schemes on the individual figures, while maintaining one singular color scheme that unifies them. I don't know, just something that goes on in my brain. Maybe it's not the same for you, but that's how it works for me. But hey, if I could get a little candid, I just want to say a huge thank you for everybody that watched the last video. The reception is beyond anything I ever thought would be accomplished with this channel, and it pushed me over 10k subs, and it's still counting. I really don't know what to say. I'll probably save it for a proper 10k special. But what it's worth, the biggest thing, I'm just glad that you guys like Quar as much as I do. I'm probably gonna do more than one Quar video per month, just a warning. Warhammer's not going anywhere, that would be stupid. But if I'm being fully honest, Quar really has my heart right now, and I don't know if that will ever go away. But I still have a ton of Warhammer projects that I have a lot of passion behind, and they just need to be painted. Plus, I think it would be downright stupid and cruel to just alienate you guys that are here for Warhammer stuff. But hey, definitely flapping my beak way too much for one video. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, share it with a friend, and remember to mishmash, kit bash, and paint some fantastic miniatures. And you're gonna. I promise. See ya.